The great hall of the Stellar Council stretched wide like a metal ocean. Thousands of beings from 47 different worlds sat in perfect rows. Their bodies came in every shape humans could imagine, and many they could not. Some looked like walking crystals that caught light and threw it back in rainbow colors. Others had tentacles instead of arms and eyes that glowed in the dark. A few floated in the air without any visible means of support. At the center of this vast gathering stood Ambassador Jiho Kim. He was alone on the speaking platform. His black suit looked simple compared to the exotic clothing and natural coverings of the alien beings around him. His hands stayed at his sides. His face showed no emotion at all. The Vraxian Chancellor rose from its seat high above the floor. It looked like a living diamond the size of a small building. When it spoke, its voice came from speakers hidden throughout the hall. The sound echoed off the walls like distant thunder. "We have reached our decision regarding the human species," the Chancellor announced. Every conversation in the hall stopped. The silence became complete. After careful consideration of all evidence, this council finds that humans are not suitable for membership in galactic civilization. Jiho did not move. He did not speak. He simply listened. The Chancellor continued. "The human species displays concerning levels of violence. Your people solve problems with warfare when peaceful solutions exist. You refuse to follow established protocols that have kept peace in this galaxy for thousands of years. Your emotional responses are unpredictable and often destructive." Around the hall, representatives from dozens of worlds nodded in agreement. The Keltorians, who looked like tall, thin people made of blue metal, had worked with humans for 5 years on mining projects. They avoided looking at Jiho now. The Harmony Collective, a group mind that spoke through beautiful humanoid bodies, had once called human creativity wonderful. Now they sat in silence. "Furthermore," the Chancellor said, "your species shows a dangerous tendency to act independently. You make decisions without consulting proper authorities. You explore regions of space that have been declared off-limits for good reasons. You modify your technology in ways that could threaten the stability of interstellar commerce." Jiho finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but it carried clearly through the vast hall. "What exactly are you saying, Chancellor?" The diamond beings seemed to grow brighter. "We are saying that Earth is expelled from the Stellar Council. All human diplomatic missions must close. All human trade agreements are canceled. All human research projects with Council members must end immediately. You have 30 standard days to remove all human presence from Council space." A murmur ran through the assembled aliens. Some sounded satisfied. Others seemed uncomfortable. Many appeared relieved that the decision was finally made. Jiho looked around the hall slowly. His dark eyes moved from one section to another. He saw species that had once called humans friends. He saw others that had always viewed Earth with suspicion. He saw a few that looked genuinely sad about the decision. "I understand," Jiho said. His voice remained calm and steady. "Earth accepts the Council's decision. The aliens expected something more. They expected anger. They expected protests. They expected the famous human emotional outbursts they had heard so much about. Instead, they got nothing but quiet acceptance." Jiho bowed slightly toward the Chancellor. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the silent hall. No one tried to stop him. No one called out in support. The man who had represented all of humanity for 3 years simply left. Within hours of Jiho's departure, something unprecedented began to happen. Every human in Council space started packing. Captain Soo-Young Park received the message while her ship explored the outer edges of Andorian territory. The New Horizon had been mapping star systems for the Council's expansion database. Her crew of 12 had spent 2 years creating detailed charts of previously unknown regions. "Captain," her communications officer said, "we have a priority message from Earth." Soo-Young read the message twice. Then she read it a third time. The orders were simple and clear. All human vessels were to return to Earth immediately. All ongoing projects were to be terminated. All cooperation with non-human entities was to end. Lieutenant Hyunwoo Lee, her first officer, looked over her shoulder at the message. "Sir, what about our star charts? We have mapped 15 new systems. The data could help the Council expand trade routes and find new colonies." Soo-Young turned to her computer terminal. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls. She selected all the survey data they had collected. 2 years of work, millions of measurements, detailed information about planets, asteroids, and space phenomena. She highlighted all of it, then she pressed delete. Sir? Hyun-woo asked in surprise. The council made their choice, Lieutenant, Soo-young said calmly. We are taking our work and going home. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On research stations orbiting distant stars, human scientists packed their equipment. They deleted their files. They said polite goodbyes to their alien colleagues and boarded transport ships bound for home. Dr. Yoon-hee Song had been working on breakthrough theories about faster-than-light travel. Her research could have revolutionized space exploration for all council species. She erased every equation from her computers and packed her personal notes into sealed containers. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, engineer Jin-Soo Nam shut down the extraction systems he had designed. The machines were marvels of human engineering that could dig deeper and extract more ore than any existing technology. When the Keltorian workers asked how to operate the systems without him, Jin-Soo provided all the technical manuals and computer codes. Everything you need is in these files, he told them politely. The systems are yours now. What Jin-Soo did not mention was that the machines had been designed around human intuition and problem-solving methods. The manuals contained all the technical specifications, but they could not capture the human way of thinking that made the systems work efficiently. Trading posts throughout council space saw their human managers quietly close their offices. Diplomatic missions that had operated for decades packed their belongings into cargo containers. Military advisors working with alien forces submitted their resignations and departed on the next available transport. None of them complained. None of them argued with the council's decision. They simply left. The speed of the withdrawal surprised everyone. Within 2 weeks, the massive human presence in council space had dwindled to almost nothing. Research projects that had employed thousands of people suddenly found themselves without their human staff members. Trade routes that had been optimized by human logistics experts began showing signs of strain. Ambassador Thek of the Hegemony tried to contact Earth directly. His people had worked closely with humans on archaeological projects. There were important discoveries that needed to be shared. The communication system showed that his message had been sent successfully, but no reply ever came. It is as if they have vanished completely, Thek reported to his government. All communication attempts fail. Their space appears to be sealed off from outside contact. On the frontier worlds where humans had established small colonies, the departure was even more mysterious. Entire settlements packed up and left within days. They took everything portable and abandoned everything else. Buildings stood empty. Machinery sat unused. Gardens grew wild without care. The humans had not destroyed anything. They had not sabotaged any systems. They had simply taken their knowledge and skills and gone home. But their absence left holes that other species found impossible to fill. The Stellar Council had expected the human expulsion to solve their problems. They had assumed that removing the unpredictable and volatile human element would make the galaxy more peaceful and manageable. Instead, they discovered that they had expelled something far more valuable than they had realized. The humans were gone, and slowly the galaxy began to understand what it had lost. 6 months had passed since the humans left. The galaxy was starting to feel different. Changes were happening everywhere, but they happened slowly. Like water dripping from a broken pipe, the problems got bigger one drop at a time. Trade routes that had worked perfectly for years began having delays. Ships arrived late to their destinations. Cargo sat in warehouses because the scheduling systems no longer worked smoothly. The efficient networks that humans had created and managed were falling apart piece by piece. The Keltorian Mining Consortium noticed the problems first. Their most profitable operation on Kepler 442b was producing only half the ore it used to extract. The machines still worked, but they broke down more often. When they did work, they moved slower and dug less efficiently. Chief Engineer Won-Shik Yu had left detailed instruction manuals before his departure. Every technical specification was recorded. Every maintenance procedure was documented. Every safety protocol was written down in perfect detail. But somehow the alien workers could not make the systems perform like they had when humans operated them. The machines are identical, reported the Keltorian supervisor to his headquarters. The procedures are the same. The workers follow every instruction exactly. But production continues to decline. The truth was simple but difficult to understand. The humans had not built their technology to exclude other species. They had simply built it the way humans naturally built things, Their machines worked best when operated by beings who thought like humans, who solved problems like humans, and who understood technology the way humans did. Similar problems appeared throughout council space. Research projects stalled when human scientists were no longer available to provide insights. Medical facilities struggled to maintain treatments that human doctors had developed. Even simple maintenance tasks became complicated without the human approach to fixing things. Ambassador Thek of the Hegemony tried again to contact Earth. His archaeological team had discovered artifacts that seemed related to previous human research. The findings could be important for understanding ancient galactic civilizations. But when he sent his message toward the Sol system, something strange happened. The communication never arrived at its destination. Long-range sensors showed that the Sol system was still there. The sun continued to shine. The planets continued to orbit. But no signals came out of the system, and no signals seemed to go into it. It was as if Earth had wrapped itself in silence. "We need to investigate this directly," Thek told his government. "Send a diplomatic mission to Earth. Find out what has happened to the humans." 3 ships from different council members attempted to visit the Sol system. The Vraxian vessel was the fastest and arrived first. When it reached the edge of human space, it encountered something unexpected. The ship simply stopped working. Not damaged, not attacked, just stopped. The engines shut down. The communication systems went silent. The life support continued to function, but every other system became inactive. After 3 hours, the system suddenly restarted, and the ship found itself outside the Sol system boundary, heading back toward council space. The crew could not explain what had happened. They remembered approaching Earth's solar system. They remembered their instruments detecting some kind of energy field. Then they remembered waking up in space with their ship moving away from Earth. "It was not hostile," the captain reported. "We were not harmed, but we were clearly not welcome." The second ship from the Harmony Collective had the same experience. The third ship did not even attempt to enter the system after receiving the reports from the first 2 missions. Earth had made itself unreachable. Meanwhile, strange reports were coming from the edge of known space. Deep space monitoring stations detected ships moving through regions that no one had ever explored. The vessels used propulsion systems that did not match any technology in the council databases. Chief Analyst Minho Choi operated the most advanced sensor array in council space. His equipment could detect and identify spacecraft from incredible distances, but when he tried to scan the mysterious ships, his readings made no sense. "The energy signatures are unlike anything we have recorded," he reported to his supervisors. "The propulsion appears to operate on principles we do not understand. The ships move faster than our fastest vessels but produce almost no detectable exhaust or radiation." More disturbing were the locations where these ships were seen. They appeared in systems that were supposed to be empty. They moved through regions of space that were considered too dangerous for normal travel. They seemed to know about places that were not on any official star charts. The Nexari Trade Federation controlled the most extensive commercial network in the galaxy. Their ships and monitoring stations kept track of all significant economic activity. But now they were detecting signs of mining operations, construction projects, and industrial facilities in locations they had never seen before. "Someone is building things in empty space," reported Trade Director Kyung-Soo Jun, one of the last humans working with a non-human organization. "Large things, complex things, things that require advanced technology and massive resources." 3 days after submitting that report, Kyung-Soo quietly resigned from his position and disappeared. The pattern was becoming clear to anyone who looked carefully. The mysterious ships, the unknown construction projects, and the advanced technology all pointed to the same conclusion. The humans had not retreated to Earth to hide. They had been busy, very busy. The Vraxian Science Directorate convened an emergency meeting. Their most important research projects were falling behind schedule. The quantum mechanics experiments that had promised to revolutionize space travel were stalled. The unified field theory that could have led to new forms of energy generation was incomplete. All of these projects had depended on work begun by human scientists. Dr. Yoon-hee Song had been developing breakthrough theories about the nature of space and time. Her research could have changed everything, but she was gone and her work was gone with her. "We must contact the humans," insisted the science director. "We must negotiate for access to their research. We must offer them compensation for their knowledge. But how could they contact people who had made themselves unreachable? The Stellar Council faced a growing crisis. The galaxy was not falling apart, but it was definitely not working as well as it had before. Systems were less efficient. Projects moved more slowly. Innovation had almost stopped. Most troubling of all were the reports from frontier worlds. Colonies that had relied on human expertise were struggling with basic problems. Equipment failures that human engineers had always been able to fix quickly now took weeks to repair. Medical emergencies that human doctors had routinely handled were becoming serious crises. The humans had not sabotaged anything when they left. They had not damaged any equipment or destroyed any facilities. They had simply taken their knowledge and their ways of thinking and gone away. The galaxy was learning that human contributions had been far greater than anyone had realized. The expelled species had not just been participants in galactic civilization. In many ways, they had been the ones making it work, and now they were gone. The silence from Earth was complete. The mysterious activities at the edge of space continued. Unknown ships moved through unexplored regions with confidence and purpose. The Council had expelled the humans for being too unpredictable and too independent. Now they were discovering what humans could accomplish when they were truly independent. The realization was deeply uncomfortable. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of Council authority and Council knowledge, humanity was doing something, building something, becoming something new. The silence was more frightening than any threat, because silence meant that the humans no longer cared what the Council thought or did. They had moved beyond the need for galactic approval. They were writing their own future now. 2 years after Earth disappeared behind its wall of silence, the galaxy received proof that humans had been very busy indeed. The discovery came from an Andorian exploration fleet. Captain Jae-woo Han had been leading deep space surveys for 15 years. He knew every type of natural phenomenon that existed in empty space. When his sensors detected something massive in the Veil Nebula, he expected to find an unusual asteroid or perhaps a rogue planet. What he found instead changed everything. The structure floating in the nebula was clearly artificial. It stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Parts of it looked like a space station. Other sections resembled a shipyard. Still other areas defied easy description. They seemed to bend light around themselves in ways that hurt to look at directly. "This is impossible," Captain Han told his crew. "Nothing this large could be built without the entire galaxy noticing." The resources required would be enormous. The construction would take decades, but there it was. Massive, complex, and undeniably real. The energy readings from the structure were unlike anything in the Andorian databases. The materials appeared to be familiar metals and composites, but they were arranged in patterns that created new properties. The whole construction seemed to exist in perfect balance with the dangerous radiation fields of the nebula. "Sir," reported his science officer, "I am detecting multiple smaller structures throughout this region of space. This appears to be just the largest installation in a network of facilities." Captain Han tried to establish communication with the structure. His signals were acknowledged but not answered. After several hours, a small ship emerged from one of the docking bays and approached his vessel. The ship that came to meet them was beautiful. Its hull curved and flowed like it had been grown rather than built. It moved through space with impossible grace, making course changes that should have crushed any crew inside from acceleration forces. A familiar voice spoke over the communication channel. "Greetings, Captain Han. This is Commander Sunwoo Kang. Please state your business in Terra Initiative space." Commander Kang had been a respected officer in the Council fleet until his resignation 2 years earlier. His departure had been quiet and professional, like all the human withdrawals. Now his voice carried a confidence that Captain Han had never heard before. "Commander," Captain Han replied carefully, "we are conducting a routine survey mission. We were not aware that this region had been claimed by any government." "It was not claimed," Commander Kang said. "It was developed. The Terra Initiative has established facilities throughout this sector. We ask that Council vessels respect our territorial boundaries." The implications were staggering. Humans had not only survived their expulsion, but had expanded into regions the Council had never even explored. They had built installations that surpassed anything in known space. They had established their own territory. When Captain Han returned with his report, the news spread quickly through Council chambers. Emergency sessions were called. Intelligence agencies were tasked with gathering more information. Military commanders were asked to assess the threat level, but gathering information proved difficult. The humans seemed to know exactly where Council ships were at all times. Attempts to conduct secret reconnaissance missions failed, because the human ships always arrived first at any location. Council vessels tried to investigate the first confirmed contact between humans and Council members happened at Trading Post Epsilon 7. The station served as a neutral meeting place for commercial activities on the frontier. Its administrator, a Nexari merchant named Folix, was shocked when a human ship requested docking permission. The vessel that docked was not like the human ships from before the expulsion. This ship, called the Prometheus, was larger and more advanced than anything humans had previously built. Its hull seemed to shift color depending on the angle of observation. Its engines produced almost no detectable emissions. Captain Minji Bay stepped off her ship with the easy confidence of someone who knew exactly where she belonged. She wore a uniform that marked her as a member of the Terra Initiative, but the uniform was made from materials the merchant had never seen before. "We would like to establish a trading relationship," Captain Bay informed the station administrator. "We have goods that may be of interest to your customers." The goods she offered for inspection left the merchant speechless. Gravity manipulation devices that could make heavy objects float effortlessly. Power generators the size of briefcases that produced more energy than entire power plants. Communication equipment that could send messages across impossible distances instantly. These technologies, the merchant said carefully, they are far more advanced than anything currently available in Council space. "What do you want in exchange for them?" "Raw materials," Captain Bay replied simply. "We need large quantities of basic elements. Iron, carbon, silicon, and similar materials." The merchant was confused. "You offer advanced technology in exchange for common materials that can be found in any asteroid field?" Captain Bay smiled. "We prefer to mine our own materials, but acquiring them through trade is more efficient for certain projects." The exchange rate she proposed was generous, almost to the point of absurdity. She was offering technology worth millions of credits in exchange for materials worth thousands. When the merchant tried to negotiate for a more balanced trade, Captain Bay seemed amused. "These are our standard rates," she said. "If you are not interested, we can find other trading partners. There are many stations in this region." The implication was clear. Humans had been mapping and cataloging areas of space the Council did not even know existed. They knew about trading opportunities that no one else had discovered. Within days of the first trade, reports began flooding Council intelligence services. Human ships had been seen at stations throughout the frontier. They all offered the same impossibly advanced technology in exchange for basic materials. They all spoke of the Terra Initiative with quiet pride. Most disturbing were the maps they carried. Human navigators had charts that showed systems, trade routes, and spatial phenomena that did not exist in any Council database. Their knowledge of local space was more complete than that of species who had lived in the region for centuries. "How is this possible?" demanded the Vraxian Chancellor in an emergency Council session. "We have the most advanced exploration technology in the galaxy. Our sensor networks should have detected any major construction or expansion activities." Ambassador Thek provided the uncomfortable answer. "Perhaps our technology is not as advanced as we believed it was." The truth was becoming impossible to ignore. While the Council had been managing their existing territories and maintaining their established systems, humans had been exploring, expanding, and developing at a rate that left everyone else behind. The humans had not spent 2 years hiding on Earth feeling sorry for themselves. They had spent 2 years pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Reports from deep space monitoring stations painted a picture of systematic exploration and development. Human vessels had been detected near the galactic core, in regions considered impossible to reach due to gravitational anomalies and radiation fields. Other human ships had been seen in the empty spaces between spiral arms, somehow finding resources and establishing facilities in areas that everyone else considered barren. Most remarkable was a report from the edge of the galaxy itself. A human trading post had been established in the space between galaxies, serving as a hub for commerce that spanned impossible distances. The logistical challenges of such an operation were beyond anything the Council had ever attempted. The Terra Initiative was not just expanding within known space. They were redefining what space could be used for. At another frontier station, Engineer Young-Ho Park demonstrated a piece of human technology that left observers stunned. It was a construction device that could assemble complex structures from raw materials automatically. The machine could process asteroids into building materials, design optimal structures for specific purposes, and complete construction projects in a fraction of the time required by conventional methods. This single device, Park explained, can build a space station in 2 weeks using nothing but local asteroids for raw materials. The implications were staggering. With technology like this, humans could establish facilities anywhere in space quickly and efficiently. They were not limited by the need to transport materials and equipment from established industrial centers. They had become truly independent of existing galactic infrastructure. The Stellar Council was beginning to realize that they had made a critical error in their evaluation of humanity. They had seen human independence and unpredictability as flaws that made the species unsuitable for galactic civilization. Instead, those same qualities had allowed humans to innovate and expand at rates that traditional civilizations could not match. The expelled species was no longer asking for a place in galactic civilization. They were building their own. 3 years after the expulsion, cracks began to appear in the foundation of galactic civilization. The problem started small but grew larger every month. What had once been minor inconveniences were becoming major crises. The Keltorian Mining Consortium posted its first financial loss in over a century. Their most profitable operations, the ones that had relied on human-designed methods, were now producing at 20% of their previous capacity. Teams of the best Keltorian engineers had spent months trying to reverse engineer the human systems. The technology is not particularly complex, reported Chief Engineer Wanchik, Yu in his final analysis, before departing for Terra Initiative space. But it integrates intuition with engineering in ways that our computational models cannot replicate. The engineers who remained behind understood every component of the mining systems. They could repair any broken part and replace any worn-out element. But they could not make the machines work the way humans had made them work. The difference was in the approach. Human engineers did not just follow predetermined procedures. They adapted to changing conditions. They solved unexpected problems with creative solutions. They made tiny adjustments based on instinct and experience that computers could not calculate. Without that human touch, the mining systems functioned, but never excelled. The crisis spread to other industries. The Nexari Medical Institute faced a devastating shortage of treatments for cell degeneration disease. Human xenobiologist Dr. Yeji Lim had developed breakthrough therapies that had saved millions of lives across multiple species. The treatments required a synthesis process that Dr. Lim had called creative chemistry. She had combined standard pharmaceutical procedures with intuitive experimentation to produce compounds that worked better than anything created through conventional methods. When the Institute tried to replicate her work, they found detailed notes describing every step of the process. But somehow their results were never as effective as the original treatments. The medicines they produced worked, but not as well as the ones Dr. Lim had created. "We need to contact Dr. Lim directly," the Institute director decided. "We must negotiate for her continued assistance. Whatever compensation she requires, we will provide it." The response from the Terra Initiative was polite but firm. Dr. Lim was currently working on projects that were classified as crucial to human expansion efforts. She was not available for consultation with former council members. However, the message continued. The Terra Initiative would be willing to provide finished medical products through our standard trading relationships. Please contact our commercial representatives for pricing information. The prices were fair, but the implications were disturbing. Humans were no longer sharing their knowledge freely with species who had excluded them from the galactic community. Medical advances that had once been freely available now had to be purchased like any other commodity. Similar situations developed throughout council space. The Harmony Collective had relied on human creativity to solve complex social problems. Human psychologist Dr. Jamin Song had developed techniques for resolving conflicts between different species. His methods had prevented dozens of potential wars. When new conflicts arose, the collective tried to apply Dr. Song's techniques, but found them much less effective without his direct involvement. The human approach to understanding different perspectives and finding common ground could not be easily duplicated by other species. The Vraxian Science Directorate faced the most serious crisis of all. Their research into advanced physics had depended heavily on human theoretical work. Dr. Kang-hoon Jo had been developing a unified theory that could revolutionize space travel, energy generation, and communication technology. Without access to his continued research, the most promising scientific projects in the galaxy ground to a halt. Experiments that had seemed close to breakthrough discoveries suddenly reached dead ends. Theoretical frameworks that had appeared nearly complete collapsed when human insights were no longer available. "We could offer Dr. Jo triple his previous compensation," suggested the Directorate's research coordinator. "We could provide him with unlimited funding and complete freedom to pursue any research he chooses." The response from Dr. Jo himself was delivered through Terra Initiative diplomatic channels. He appreciated the generous offer, but was currently working on projects that made the Council's unified theory look simple by comparison. He was not interested in returning to research that he had already moved beyond. The message was polite, but the meaning was clear. Human science had not stopped advancing when they left Council space. It had accelerated. Reports from independent traders began to paint a picture of human capabilities that seemed almost impossible to believe. Captain Sungmin Lee, who operated a small cargo vessel on the frontier, encountered a human research station while investigating unusual energy readings in an unexplored system. The station was conducting experiments with artificial gravity, Captain Lee reported to anyone who would listen. But not just creating gravity fields, they were manipulating the fundamental forces that hold space and time together. "I watched them fold space around their facility, like it was made of cloth." Other reports described human ships that could travel faster than anything in the Council fleet. Without using conventional propulsion systems, the vessels seemed to move through space by convincing space itself to flow around them in different ways. Communication. Networks operated by the Terra Initiative could transmit data instantly across galactic distances. Messages that should have taken months to travel were being delivered in seconds through methods that no Council scientist could understand. Most disturbing were reports of human manufacturing capabilities. Industrial facilities that could convert raw stellar material directly into finished products. Construction projects that assembled themselves from basic elements without any visible machinery. Entire space habitats that grew like living organisms but were clearly artificial. The technology gap was becoming a chasm. Dr. Seo-hyun Kim, who operated a small research station on the Council frontier, had the opportunity to observe human activities directly when a Terra Initiative survey team arrived in her system. The human ships moved with a grace that seemed to defy physics. Their hulls shimmered with energy fields that bent light and absorbed sensor scans. "I tried to analyze their propulsion systems," Dr. Kim reported to the Council Science Division. "My instruments detected energy patterns that do not correspond to any known physical processes. They appear to be using forces that our current understanding of science says should not exist." When she attempted to communicate with the human survey team, their response was friendly, but revealed how far human knowledge had advanced. They spoke casually about concepts that represented the cutting edge of Council research as if they were basic principles, understood by every human child. They mentioned traveling to other galaxies as routinely as we discussed trips to neighboring star systems, Dr. Kim reported. They spoke of energy sources that could power entire civilizations. They described manufacturing techniques that could build planets from cosmic dust. The most unsettling revelation came when Dr. Kim asked about human population numbers. The survey team leader, Commander Da-hyun Park, smiled and said that Terra Initiative space now housed more humans than had ever lived on Earth. "We have been busy," Commander Park explained. "When you have unlimited resources and unlimited space, population growth becomes limited only by your imagination." The implications were staggering. Not only had humans survived their expulsion and developed advanced technology, but they had expanded their population to levels that dwarfed anything in Council space. They were not just an independent civilization anymore. They were becoming a galactic superpower. The Stellar Council called emergency sessions to address what was being called the human situation. Committee after committee was formed to study the problem. Reports were commissioned. Experts testified about the potential threats posed by unrestricted human expansion. But all the committees and reports could not change the fundamental reality. The Council had expelled a species that they thought was too primitive and too chaotic for galactic civilization. Instead, they had freed humanity from the limitations and bureaucracy that slowed down every Council initiative. Humans had spent 3 years developing at their natural pace. The results were becoming impossible to ignore. The galaxy was learning what humans could accomplish when they stopped trying to fit into existing systems and started building their own. The lesson was both impressive and terrifying. 5 years after Earth's expulsion, the Stellar Council faced a crisis that shattered their pride and forced them to confront an uncomfortable truth. They needed humanity more than humanity needed them. The crisis came from outside the galaxy. Long-range sensors detected massive objects approaching from the void between galaxies. The objects were moving faster than anything the Council had ever recorded. Their energy signatures suggested technology that was both ancient and incredibly advanced. When the first wave of invaders arrived, they called themselves the Devourers. Their ships were living things the size of moons. They moved through space like predators hunting prey. Their technology could break down entire star systems and convert the matter into energy to fuel their expansion. The Devourers had traveled between galaxies for millions of years, consuming civilizations and growing stronger with each conquest. They had detected the energy signatures of advanced technology from Council space and had come to feed. The first battle took place at the edge of Raxian territory. The pride of the Council fleet, led by the massive battleship Eternal Glory, engaged the Devourer ships with confidence. The Raxian military had never lost a major engagement. Their weapons were the most powerful in known space. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the entire Vraxian fleet had been destroyed, not damaged or defeated, but completely consumed. The Devourers had absorbed the energy from the exploding ships and used it to grow larger and stronger. Panic spread through Council space as system after system went dark. The Devourers moved with terrifying efficiency. They would arrive at a populated world, deploy their consumption devices, and strip away everything from the planetary surface to the orbital facilities. Within days, thriving civilizations became empty space. "We need every available resource," announced the Vraxian Chancellor in an emergency session. "Contact all member species. Mobilize every fleet. Draft every scientist and engineer. This threat requires the combined efforts of all galactic civilization." The chamber buzzed with desperate activity as representatives contacted their governments and military commanders. But it was Ambassador Thek who voiced what everyone was thinking but no one wanted to say. What about Earth? The silence that followed was profound. 5 years of pride, resentment, and stubborn independence hung in the air between the Council members and the reality of their situation. The Chancellor's crystalline form seemed to dim. The humans were expelled for valid reasons. They are no longer part of this civilization, but they are still part of this galaxy, Thek replied quietly. And they have technology that might make a difference. The first attempt to contact Terra Initiative space failed completely. Council communication systems could not penetrate whatever barriers humans had placed around their territory. The second attempt, routed through old diplomatic channels, received a brief response that was more frustrating than encouraging. Terra Initiative acknowledges Council transmission. Please direct future communications through proper channels. Those proper channels turned out to be a human trade representative named Seojun Kim. He operated from a massive station that definitely had not existed a year earlier. The structure was a work of art as much as engineering. It curved and flowed through space like a living sculpture made of metal and energy. The Terra Initiative is willing to discuss the current situation, Seojun informed the Council delegation that arrived at his station. However, we should clarify the nature of our relationship. Earth is no longer seeking Council membership or recognition. We are an independent civilization that may be able to assist former associates. The words hit the Council representatives like physical blows. In 5 years, humanity had gone from expelled members begging for readmission to an independent power that viewed the Council as former business partners. The proof of humanity's transformation arrived with Captain Young Micho and the Terra Initiative Response Fleet. The ships that accompanied her were unlike anything the Council had seen before. They moved through space with fluid grace that made conventional vessels look clumsy by comparison. The hulls of the human ships seemed to shift and change as they moved. Sometimes they appeared solid. Other times they became translucent or seemed to phase in and out of visible light. Energy fields surrounded each vessel like glowing auras that made sensor readings difficult to interpret. "We have analyzed the Devourer technology," Captain Cho reported to the assembled council representatives. "It is impressive but not insurmountable. Their consumption process relies on breaking down molecular bonds and converting matter to energy. Their ships are biological constructs with remarkable adaptive capabilities. What do you need from us to stop them?" asked the Chancellor. Captain Cho smiled with the confidence of someone who held all the advantages. "Nothing. We will handle this ourselves. Consider it a gesture of goodwill between independent civilizations." The Battle of the Void took place in empty space between star systems. The Council fleet withdrew to a safe distance and watched as humanity engaged the Devourers with tactics that seemed impossible. Human ships moved through space like schools of fish, coordinating their movements with perfect precision. They appeared and disappeared at will, striking at Devourer vessels from unexpected angles and vanishing before return fire could reach them. The weapons they used were unlike anything in Council databases, beams of energy that seemed to unravel the molecular structure of Devourer ships, projectiles that passed through normal matter, but interacted destructively with the alien technology. Fields of force that trapped entire enemy fleets in bubbles of altered spacetime. Most impressive was the coordination between human vessels. They communicated and maneuvered as if controlled by a single intelligence. Ships separated by millions of kilometers moved in perfect synchronization. Attack patterns were executed with precision that suggested instantaneous communication across impossible distances. The Devourers, who had seemed unstoppable against Council forces, found themselves outmaneuvered, outgunned, and completely overwhelmed. Their adaptive technology could not keep up with human innovation. Their consumption weapons were neutralized by human countermeasures that seemed to anticipate every possible attack. When the battle ended, the Devourer fleet had been completely destroyed. Not consumed or converted, but utterly eliminated. The threat that had terrified the entire Council had been handled by humans as efficiently as any routine military operation. Captain Cho's final transmission to the Council was brief and professional. "Threat neutralized. Terra Initiative vessels returning to our territory. It was a pleasure working with you again." The Council representatives were left floating in space, watching the human ships disappear into whatever dimensions they used for faster-than-light travel. The silence that followed was filled with a new understanding of their place in the galaxy. Humanity had not just survived their expulsion. They had evolved beyond the need for galactic civilization entirely. They had become something new, something more advanced, something that treated the former galactic superpower as equals at best and ignored clients at worst. The expelled species had not been diminished by their rejection. They had been freed to become what they were truly capable of becoming, and what they had become was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. The Stellar Council had made a decision, 5 years earlier, based on their assessment of human limitations and flaws. Now they faced the consequences of that decision in the form of a civilization that had surpassed them in every measurable way. The humans had taken the hint immediately when they were expelled. They had left without argument or complaint, but they had not gone away to disappear or diminish. They had gone away to become something that the galaxy had never seen before, something that changed the very meaning of what it meant to be an advanced civilization. The recognition was as humbling as it was absolute. The Council had not just expelled Earth from their civilization. They had expelled themselves from humanity's future. 10 years after Earth's expulsion, the Stellar Council convened for what historians would later call the most important session in galactic history. The chamber looked the same as it had a decade earlier, but everything else had changed. The representatives who gathered were no longer the confident rulers of galactic civilization. They were petitioners seeking recognition from a power that had grown beyond their ability to comprehend. The agenda had only one item: formal recognition of the Terra Initiative as an independent galactic power. The galaxy bore little resemblance to the ordered civilization that had expelled humanity. Human trade networks now connected thousands of systems that the Council had never explored. Human technology had revolutionized everything from medical treatment to stellar engineering. Human explorers had pushed the boundaries of known space so far that the old galactic maps were historical curiosities. Most significantly, Entire species were choosing to leave council space and join the rapidly expanding Terra initiative. The economic opportunities were too attractive to ignore. The technological advances were too valuable to reject. The freedom from council bureaucracy was too appealing to resist. Ambassador Jiho Kim entered the council chambers exactly 10 years after his last appearance. The man who had accepted Earth's expulsion with quiet dignity now wore the insignia of Terra Initiative leadership. But more than his uniform had changed. He carried himself with the confidence of someone who represented the most successful civilization in galactic history. The Terra Initiative appreciates the Council's invitation to establish formal diplomatic relations, Jiho began. His words were carefully chosen and carried implications that would have seemed impossible a decade earlier. We are prepared to discuss mutually beneficial cooperation between our respective civilizations. The language was revolutionary. Not membership or readmission, but cooperation between equals. Not seeking approval, but offering partnership. The expelled species had become a galactic superpower that could negotiate with the Council as an equal or ignore them entirely. The Vraxian Chancellor, the same crystalline being that had pronounced humanity's expulsion, now found itself in the uncomfortable position of negotiating with a civilization that had surpassed the Council in every measurable way. Your technological advances could benefit all galactic species, the Chancellor said carefully. Surely you recognize the wisdom of sharing such developments through established institutions. Jiho's response was polite, but contained an edge of steel that had not been there 10 years earlier. The Terra Initiative operates on principles of voluntary cooperation and fair exchange. We are happy to trade with any civilization that offers appropriate value for our innovations. We no longer operate under the assumption that our discoveries should be freely shared with those who would exclude us from the process of creating them. The economics of the new relationship were staggering. Human innovations had created entirely new industries worth more than the combined gross product of all Council worlds. Their exploration had opened trade routes that generated more wealth in a year than some civilizations had accumulated in millennia. Their defensive capabilities had proven able to handle threats that could destroy traditional galactic powers. But the most significant change was philosophical. The Terra Initiative offered an alternative to the rigid hierarchy and slow bureaucracy of Council governance. Species that joined the human expansion enjoyed unprecedented freedom to develop their own potential. The Keltorian Mining Consortium had been the first major organization to switch sides. After years of declining profits under Council regulations, they negotiated a partnership with Terra Initiative engineers. Within months, their mining operations were producing at levels that exceeded their previous records by enormous margins. The difference is in the approach, explained Consortium Director Taehyun No, a human engineer who had returned to help former colleagues. Council methods focus on maintaining stability and following established procedures. Human methods focus on continuous improvement and creative problem-solving. The medical revolution followed quickly. Dr. Yeji Lim's research had continued to advance. During her years with the Terra Initiative, the treatments she now offered could cure diseases that had plagued species for thousands of years. Cancer became as treatable as a common cold. Genetic disorders could be corrected with simple procedures. Aging itself was becoming optional for species that chose to adopt human biotechnology. The Nexari Medical Institute faced a choice between maintaining their independence under Council authority or accepting partnership with the Terra Initiative. The decision was made easier when Dr. Lim offered to share her latest research freely with any medical institution that committed to treating patients regardless of their species or political affiliation. Within 2 years, half the medical facilities in Council space had quietly established partnerships with human researchers. The transformation was not limited to technology and economics. The Terra Initiative had developed new forms of governance that combined human creativity with alien wisdom. Democratic processes that actually responded to citizen needs, economic systems that rewarded innovation while ensuring basic welfare for all residents, legal frameworks that protected individual rights while maintaining social stability. Species that had spent centuries under Council bureaucracy discovered what they could accomplish when freed from committee oversight and regulatory delays. The Harmony Collective, which had always valued consensus and careful deliberation, found that human-style rapid Prototyping and iterative improvement could achieve better results in less time. We spent 300 years debating the perfect solution to urban transportation, reported collective representative Sungjae Park. The humans built a working prototype in 3 months and improved it based on actual usage data. The council faced a choice that grew more urgent with each passing month. They could adapt to a galaxy where the Terra Initiative was the dominant power, or they could risk being left behind entirely by the accelerating pace of change. The final agreement, negotiated over months of careful diplomacy, became known as the Terra Accords. The document established humanity as a fully recognized galactic civilization with sovereign rights over their territory. Trade relationships were formalized on terms that heavily favored the Terra Initiative. Cultural exchange programs were established that allowed council species to study human methods and innovations, but the most significant clause was Article 7. The Terra Initiative reserves the right to extend membership to any species or organization seeking alternatives to traditional galactic governance structures. The article was carefully worded, but its meaning was clear. Any species that became dissatisfied with council rule could apply to join the human expansion. The Terra Initiative would evaluate each application and accept those that demonstrated compatibility with human values of innovation, independence, and individual freedom. Within 6 months of the signing ceremony, 3 major council species had formally applied for Terra Initiative membership. The Keltorian government cited economic opportunities that were impossible to achieve under council regulations. The Nexari Federation pointed to technological advances that could benefit their entire population. The Harmony Collective explained their desire to explore new forms of social organization. Each application was carefully reviewed by Terra Initiative assessment teams. The humans did not accept every applicant. Species that relied heavily on rigid hierarchy or showed resistance to change were encouraged to remain with the council, but those that demonstrated adaptability and creative potential were welcomed into the expanding human civilization. The signing ceremony took place in the same council chambers where humanity had been expelled 10 years earlier. Ambassador Jiho Kim sat at a table as an equal partner with representatives from the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. The symbolism was not lost on anyone present. As the ceremony concluded, Dr. Yunseo Park, the Terra Initiative's chief science advisor, joined Jiho for the return journey to human space. Their ship was one of the new generation of vessels that could travel between star systems in minutes rather than weeks. "Do you think they regret their decision?" Dr. Park asked as they prepared to depart the council station. Jiho looked back at the massive structure that had once represented the pinnacle of galactic achievement. Now it seemed small and outdated compared to the installations that dotted Terra Initiative space. The beings inside were struggling to adapt to a galaxy that had moved far beyond their ability to control or even understand. "I think they are beginning to realize that they did not expel us from their civilization," Jiho replied thoughtfully. "They expelled themselves from ours." The truth was becoming impossible to deny. The Stellar Council had made a decision based on their assessment of human limitations and their assumption that expulsion would solve their problems. Instead, they had freed humanity from the constraints that had been holding them back. The expelled species had not argued or protested or begged for reconsideration. They had simply taken the hint and built something better than what they had been excluded from. The galaxy had learned a fundamental lesson about humanity. When told they were not welcome, humans did not waste time trying to change.